The door slammed shut behind him like a prison gate. Somewhere in the dark below the Hale mansion, the iron bolt turned with a clunk that echoed like judgment. Silence followed. Then a child's breath, shallow, rapid, sliced through the stillness. 4-year-old Daniel crouched in the damp corner of the basement, arms wrapped tightly around his wooden crutches. His small frame trembled as if trying to disappear into itself. "It was just a glass," he whispered to no one, his voice breaking. "I didn't mean to." There was no reply. There never was. Above him, the world carried on. The crystal chandeliers still sparkled. The stone floors remained polished. And Sophia Hale, the woman who had locked him in, continued her day as if nothing had happened. She walked away from the hallway, heels clicking with quiet menace. Her tailored ivory robe swayed as she turned the corner. Her hair, golden and perfect, caught the morning light like an angel's crown, though no angel ever walked the way she did. To Sophia, Daniel's tears were like fingerprints on glass, unsightly and disposable. Across the mansion, another door opened. A tired woman stepped in, carrying a cloth bag and too many memories. Elena Morales, 39, a widow from a mountain village 5 hours away, had finally arrived. Her back ached. Her fingers were still numb from gripping the bus seat. Her eyes scanned the opulence before her with both awe and unease. She had come for work. Good pay, room and board, a chance to keep her teenage children fed and schooled. But even as she crossed the threshold, she knew something was wrong. The air was too quiet, too clean, like a hospital where everyone had already died. Then came Sophia. "Icy, beautiful, immaculate. You must be Morales." "Yes, ma'am. Elena Morales." "In this house, there are rules," Sophia said crisply. "No noise. No prying. You do not disturb my husband. And you do not disturb his son. Understood?" Elena nodded. "Understood, ma'am." But just then, a sound. Faint. Cracked. A sob. It came from somewhere below. Somewhere that didn't appear on the grand blueprints. Elena turned her head slightly, eyes narrowing. Sophia didn't flinch. Didn't acknowledge it. That was the first sign. Later, lying in the narrow servant's bed that barely fit her body, Elena could still hear the crying. Not just in memory. It lived in the walls, echoed through the stone like a forgotten name. Her instincts told her something the job description hadn't. This was not a house with secrets. It was a secret that had built itself into a house. And something inside it was hurting, too. By dawn, the sky was pale. Fog rolled down the mountains and curled around the Hale estate like a whisper of something ancient. Elena rose early. Habit. Back home. Her son Lucas would be leaving for his repair shop job about now. Camila, her 15-year-old daughter, would already have a book open at the kitchen table, eyes hiding sadness behind text. Elena had left them behind for this. Dad had left her no choice. Her husband Javier, killed on a construction site in a freak accident, had also left nothing but bills and silence. No insurance. No apology. Just a phone call and a death certificate. Now, her hands scrubbed marble that didn't belong to her. Her meals fed people who wouldn't remember her name. And yet, that crying. She couldn't unhear it. At precisely 7:30 a.m., the routine began. Sharp footsteps down the stairs. Mr. Richard Hale, a man with silver temples and silence in his suit. He nodded at her once. No words. Then came a second sound. Different. Wood on wood. Deliberate. Labored. Thump, thump. Daniel. He descended the stairs with the caution of someone who had fallen before. Each step a calculation. His sweater hung loose around his narrow frame. His crutches bore his weight, but barely. Their eyes met. Elena smiled gently. "Good morning." He didn't answer, but he didn't look away. And then came the whip crack of Sophia's voice. "Daniel." The boy flinched like he'd been slapped. "You were told not to leave your room until I called for you." "I'm sorry." Her voice was poison and perfume. Then she turned to Elena. Eyes sharpened. "Ms. Morales, get back to your duties." She took Daniel by the wrist, not violently, but with the efficiency of someone who didn't see the need for softness, and led him away. Elena stood motionless. She had seen enough in that one moment to understand. The silence in this house wasn't luxury. It was survival. 3. Over the next few days, Elena worked and watched. Sophia left often. Lunches, salons, photo shoots, charity committees where wealth posed as kindness. Mr. Hale left too, usually in silence, absorbed in his own distant burdens. Only Daniel remained behind, mostly upstairs, hidden behind a white wooden door like a ghost the house couldn't exorcise. The staff had been told not to disturb him. But one afternoon, while Sophia was out, Elena brought a small plate of warm cookies and knocked softly. "Daniel," she said. "It's Elena. I made something. Just a little snack." A pause. Then footsteps. Slow. Familiar. The door cracked open. He looked up at her, eyes dark and uncertain. "You're not allowed up here. I won't stay. I just thought you might be hungry." He opened the door slightly wider. The room was pristine, but not warm. Toys arranged like museum pieces. Books stacked too high for a child on crutches to reach. Everything tidy. Everything wrong. Elena set the plate down. "They're star-shaped. I used to make these for my kids." Daniel's eyes lit up faintly. "Stars are my favorite." "I guessed. Stars shine brightest in the dark." He smiled, barely. "My mom used to say that too." "Your real mom." He nodded slowly. "She said my crutches were magic swords. That I was a knight." Elena's throat caught. "She was right," she whispered. "Only the brave carry swords that heavy." Daniel hesitated. "But when I'm loud, Sophia gets mad. She locks me in the dark room." Elena froze. "In the basement?" she asked, voice thin. Daniel nodded. "She says I have to learn silence. She says my dad doesn't want me to be noisy." Elena sat beside him. Her hands trembled. "Daniel, your father loves you. You are not a burden. None of this is your fault." His lips quivered. "But if I tell," she said, "he'll send me away. To a place where no one wants kids with crutches." Elena couldn't speak for a moment. "Listen to me," she said finally. "If that day ever comes, and you're scared, call me. I'll come. I promise." He looked at her, eyes huge. "Even if you're not here anymore?" "Even then." He bit into the cookie slowly. "You won't tell her?" "No," she said. "This is our secret." Outside, a car door slammed. "Sophia." Elena jumped to her feet, cleared the tray, smoothed the blanket, and straightened Daniel's crutches. "Remember," she whispered. "Magic swords." Daniel pressed a finger to his lips and nodded. As Elena slipped out the door, she carried more than an empty tray. She carried a promise. The next morning, Elena woke before sunrise, as always. But this time, her body moved while her mind was elsewhere. Upstairs, in that strange room with too many clean corners and one brave boy who whispered like he was afraid his own voice might betray him. She scrubbed the grand hallway floors on autopilot. A fine layer of silence coated everything in the Hale mansion, broken only by the whisper of her mop and the distant click of utensils from the kitchen. Then, for the first time, a voice. "You're the new housekeeper." Elena looked up, startled. "Mr. Hale." He stood at the foot of the staircase, already in his charcoal suit, briefcase in one hand, phone in the other. His voice was steady but detached, like someone halfway through another conversation in his head. "Yes, sir," she replied. "Elena Morales." He gave a small nod. "Sophia told me. I'll be away for a few days. If you need anything, speak with her." He turned, already checking his phone again. "Sir," Elena ventured, her voice barely above a whisper. "Your son." He paused, looked up. "Yes." But something in her stopped. She had no proof. No allies. No idea how far Sophia's shadow reached. "Nothing, sir," she said. "Safe travels." He gave a half-smile, the kind you offer to hotel staff or taxi drivers, then left through the heavy front door. Behind him, silence returned like a blanket dropped over a cage. At breakfast, Elena watched Sophia glide through the kitchen like royalty inspecting her palace. She wore pearls and a white blouse that shimmered like it had been ironed by angels. Her voice, as usual, was smooth on the surface, venom beneath. "You know," she said to Richard just before his departure, "Daniel is so difficult lately. Stubborn, constantly inventing little stories to get attention." Richard glanced up from his eggs, brow faintly furrowed. "Stories? Yes. Claims I'm mean to him, that I lock him in his room." She gave a soft, practiced laugh. "Imagination can be dangerous, don't you think?" Richard sighed. "He's had a hard time since, well, you've done your best. I appreciate your patience." Elena nearly dropped the plate she was carrying. Patience. That afternoon, she found Daniel in the hallway by the library. He was perched on a low bench, crutches beside him, holding a closed book in his lap. "Hi," he said softly, almost like a secret. She sat beside him, carefully keeping her voice low. Do you like stories? He nodded. This one's about dragons. My mom used to read it. Sophia says it's childish. I think dragons are brave, Elena said. And I think brave things should be read about, even if you have to whisper. He smiled faintly, but then his face dimmed. My dad doesn't read to me anymore. I think he forgot how. Elena felt a crack form in her chest. Maybe he just needs reminding. I don't think he listens. Not really. When I talk, he just nods. Sophia says no one believes kids like me. Do you believe you? Daniel blinked at her, then nodded. Good, Elena said. That's the first step. Days passed, each one carved deeper into Elena's resolve. She saw how Daniel avoided laughter like it was a trap, how he walked on crutches not just out of necessity, but like someone who feared making too much noise, how he stared longingly at the door when his father came home, only to vanish quietly when ignored. One evening, while dusting near the parlor, Elena overheard Sophia on the phone. The boy is getting worse. I'm looking into boarding schools. Special ones. Out of state. Somewhere he can't ruin things anymore. Elena's hand tightened on the cloth. Boarding school. It would be exile. Silence, perfected. A prison with a prettier name. She didn't sleep that night. Then came the fall. A literal one. Rain whispered against the windows as Elena tidied the kitchen. Upstairs, a loud thud. A soft, frightened cry. She dropped the dish towel and ran. In the hallway, she found Daniel sitting on the floor, one crutch knocked across the marble, a red mark blooming on his forehead. What happened? She gasped, kneeling. I wanted the book, he whimpered. The one with the silver dragon. But it was too high. Elena looked up. The shelf towered above him. No step stool. No chair. Nothing. She held him close. You're okay now. You're safe. His tiny body trembled. I miss her. My real mom. I know, she whispered. I wish she'd come back. She'd be proud of you, Elena said. Of how brave you are. He looked up at her. Would you read it to me? Yes. Every page. Neither of them noticed the shadow behind them until it spoke. What's going on here? Sophia. Elena stood fast. He fell. I was helping. Sophia's eyes narrowed. Back to your room, Daniel. Daniel flinched. Elena moved to speak, but stopped. Not yet. Not here. The door closed with a thud behind them. But something had changed. Sophia had seen the bond now. And Elena knew. She wouldn't let it grow. That night, Elena sat alone in her room. Rain tapped the windows. Somewhere in the house, Daniel cried again. And something inside her broke. She called her mother-in-law. Daughter, the old woman warned, don't get involved. Rich people carry their own poison. You have your own children. Mama, Elena said, tears slipping quietly, he's just a child. He needs someone. If not me, then who? There was no answer. Only silence. And Elena decided. She would be the one. The next day, she waited. She cleaned. She watched. When Richard returned early from a business meeting, she approached him outside his study. Mr. Hale, forgive me, but I need to speak. He frowned. Is something wrong with your work? No, sir. It's your son. A pause. Defensive instinct rising in his posture. He's not misbehaving, Elena said. He's suffering. Richard sighed. Ms. Morales. I know this isn't my place, but I've seen enough. Her eyes didn't waver. Daniel is scared. And more than that, he's alone. Richard opened his mouth, closed it again. Please, she added. Just talk to him. That's all I ask. He nodded slowly. All right. That evening, for the first time in what felt like forever, Richard entered Daniel's room. The boy looked up, startled. Dad. Richard hesitated. What are you doing? Daniel held up the silver dragon book. Reading. Richard sat beside him. Awkward. Like a guest in his own life. I'd forgotten this one, he said. Daniel looked down. Do you still love me? The question hit like a blow. Richard had no words. All the hours of work. The excuses. The silence. I'm sorry, he said, his voice breaking. I should have been here. Daniel leaned into him, tentative, unsure. But Richard pulled him close. And in that fragile moment, something began to mend. The next morning, Richard watched Sophia with new eyes. Her scolding tone, her dismissive glances, her cold grip on Daniel's shoulder. He noticed. He questioned. He began to listen. And Sophia noticed him noticing. Her smiles grew tighter, her temper shorter, until one morning, it cracked. Daniel had asked to say goodbye before his father left. Sophia snapped. He's busy. Don't bother him. She dragged Daniel back up the stairs, ignoring the crutches that clattered to the floor. Elena saw it. All of it. And she acted. She called Richard. Come home. Now. Please. When he arrived, Elena met him at the gate, led him through the house, down the stairs, to the basement. She handed him the key, and when the door opened, everything changed. Daniel huddled in the corner, pale, shaking. Son, Richard whispered, rushing to him. Daniel threw himself into his father's arms, sobbing. Behind them, Elena turned on the light. The room was a tomb. No blankets, mold on the walls, the smell of cold stone and fear. Richard held his son tightly. Sophia appeared behind them. Richard, don't. You're overreacting. You locked a 4-year-old in a dungeon. He's manipulative. Broken. He's not even mine. Richard turned slowly. I see you now. All of you. She stepped back. You can't. My lawyer will be in touch. Security. 2 guards emerged. She screamed. They didn't flinch. Her voice echoed as they dragged her out. No one answered it. Later, in the stillness of the living room, Richard held Daniel close. I'm sorry, he whispered. I let you live in the dark. Daniel looked up. Don't leave me again. I won't, Richard said. Never again. And the shadows that had once owned the Hale mansion began to lift. The silence after Sophia's departure was not empty. It was healing. Gone were the footsteps that made children flinch. Gone was the perfume that lingered like smoke. Gone was the woman who turned discipline into cruelty and fear into law. The Hale mansion, once polished but frozen, began to breathe again. On the first morning without her, Daniel crept into the dining room as though testing the air. No one yelled. No one sent him back. He sat at the table. Elena served him a warm plate of pancakes, fresh fruit on the side, and for the first time in memory, he ate without trembling. Richard joined them, still adjusting to his new role, not just father by name, but by presence. He tried awkward small talk. Did you sleep well? Daniel nodded slowly. I had a dream about flying. Elena smiled gently. Were you a dragon? No, Daniel whispered. I was just me. But I had wings. Richard's throat tightened. That's a good dream. They ate in quiet peace, and the house listened. Change came in small, ordinary miracles. Richard postponed a business trip, then canceled another. He converted a study into a playroom, installed a lift along the staircase, and, for the first time, he took Daniel to a doctor who didn't look at the boy with pity, but with a plan. You came just in time, the doctor said. With the right therapy, his muscles can strengthen. He may even walk without support one day. Daniel's eyes lit up. I can run. Maybe not right away. But yes, that's the goal. In the car ride home, Daniel gripped his father's hand tightly. I want to try. I want to work hard. Richard squeezed back. And I'll be right there with you. Elena remained at the house. But something between her and Richard had shifted. She was no longer just the housekeeper or even the boy's protector. She was the reason the house still stood. One afternoon, after Daniel's first physical therapy session, Richard found Elena in the garden. The sunset spilled golden light over the hedges. She was watering the roses. A quiet ritual. I never realized how empty this house was until it wasn't, he said. She turned, surprised. It's not the house that changed, Mr. Hale. It's you. He smiled faintly. You can call me Richard now. A pause. The kind that says more than it withholds. I've been meaning to say thank you, he added. Not just for Daniel. For me, too. Elena looked down. I didn't do much. I just listened. You did what I couldn't. What I didn't see. His voice caught. She stepped forward, gently touching his hand. You see now? That's what matters. Their fingers lingered. Neither pulled away. Weeks passed, and the mansion began to sound like a home. Laughter returned. Stories were read out loud again. Daniel's drawings filled the refrigerator door. Sometimes they were of dragons, sometimes of stars, sometimes of 5 people holding hands. One of those people had curly hair. 2 months after Sophia was gone, Elena's children came to visit. Lucas, 16 now, tall and lean, with grease on his fingers and questions in his eyes. Camila, bookish and soft-spoken, quiet but sharp. They entered the house like guests. But within hours, Daniel had taken Camila by the hand and dragged her to the library. Look, he said proudly. These books used to be too high for me. Now I can reach some of them. Lucas helped Daniel rebuild a robot from an old science kit in the basement. The three of them spent an entire afternoon racing paper airplanes down the hall, laughing so loudly Elena feared they'd knock over a vase. But Richard only smiled. "This is what it's supposed to feel like," he said. One evening, after the kids had gone to bed, Richard found Elena on the balcony. The moon hung low and warm. Below them, Daniel's crutches rested by the door. "Elena," he began. She turned. "You changed this house." She laughed softly. "Daniel did. He just needed someone to believe in him." "So did I." He stepped closer. "I'm not a man who talks much. I've made too many mistakes. And I'm not promising to be perfect." He reached for her hand. "But I want us to be a family. You, me, your children." "Daniel." Her eyes shimmered. "You're sure?" "I've never been more." She said nothing, only nodded. And that was enough. They married quietly. No photographers. No society pages. No orchestra. Just sunlight, white flowers, and 3 children who had found a place to belong. Daniel walked the aisle as Richard's best man, still with crutches, but upright and proud. Elena's dress was simple, elegant. Camila held her bouquet. Lucas gave her away. The vows were whispered, but every word was true. When the officiant said, "You are now a family," Daniel cheered louder than anyone. That night, the 5 of them sat in the garden beneath lanterns. Daniel handed Richard a drawing. 5 stick figures holding hands. Above them, in uneven letters, it read, "My family." And for once, not a single person in the house was afraid of the dark. For a while, it seemed too perfect. Breakfasts filled with quiet laughter. Afternoons in the garden, Daniel walking a little farther each week. Evenings of stories, piano lessons, and Camila teaching her new little brother how to write better cursive. But no house, no matter how warm, can keep all storms away. One came softly, the kind that starts inside. It began with nightmares. Daniel had been making great progress. With daily therapy and newfound joy, his muscles were growing stronger. His smile, once hesitant, came freely now. He asked questions, drew comics, talked about one day visiting the ocean. But then, one night, the dream returned. He was back in the basement. The door locked, the light gone, no crutches, only the sound of heels fading away. When Elena came in the next morning, she found him sitting up in bed, wide-eyed, sweating through his sheets. "I didn't scream," he said. "I wanted to, but I didn't." She sat beside him, brushing his hair back. "It was just a dream. But it used to be real," Daniel whispered. "What if it comes back?" "It won't," she said. "You're safe." "But what if it finds me here?" Elena hesitated. She had promised him safety, but trauma didn't obey promises. "You're stronger now," she said gently. "And you're not alone." He leaned into her, small hands clutching the fabric of her robe. "I believe you," he said, "but sometimes I still feel like I'm there." Meanwhile, Richard faced his own ghosts. The guilt, once blinding, had dulled, but not disappeared. He had saved his son, yes, but had also allowed the harm. Every time he saw Daniel hesitate before speaking or flinch at loud noises, a fresh wave of shame crashed over him. He started seeing a therapist. At first, he resisted. "I'm not the one who needs help." But the doctor, a calm man with gray at his temples, only nodded. "That's the sentence I hear most often, from the people who need it most." Richard stayed, and for the first time in years, he spoke. About neglect, about detachment, about the cost of mistaking silence for peace. "It wasn't just her cruelty," he said during one session. "It was my absence. I let her control the house because I thought control meant stability." The therapist looked at him. "And now, I'd burn it all before letting that happen again." He meant it. Outside the house, the world had not forgotten Sophia. She had vanished from their lives, but not from society. Gossip sites whispered. Old friends asked questions. And one day, a letter arrived. A legal threat. A claim to property. A demand to revise the divorce terms. Elena found Richard in the study, the paper still in his hand. "She's trying to come back," he said quietly. "She won't succeed. She has lawyers. So do you. And this time, you have more than money. You have the truth." He looked up at her, and for the first time in days, smiled. Daniel's next therapy milestone came in spring. He stood in the garden, braces on his legs, holding onto parallel bars set up by his physiotherapist. Lucas stood beside him, stopwatch in hand. Camila had drawn a cardboard medal. Elena watched from the porch, hard in her throat. 1 minute, Lucas said. "Go." Daniel walked. Slow. deliberate, but without crutches. One step, another, 5 seconds, 10. He wobbled, but didn't fall. When he reached the end, Camila ran to place the medal around his neck. Daniel beamed. "Did you see, Dad?" he shouted. Richard was already halfway across the grass. "I saw everything." He scooped Daniel into his arms. "You're incredible." "No," Daniel said, grinning. "I'm just getting started." But joy has sharp edges, too. A few days later, while playing near the rose bushes, Daniel saw a car he didn't recognize. Black, long parked near the gate. A figure in sunglasses stared out the window. He turned and ran, breath catching in his throat. By the time Elena came out, the car was gone. Daniel said nothing. But that night, he slept with his light on. The past, it seemed, was not finished with them. Spring thickened into early summer. The garden bloomed wildly. Roses curled over trellises. Lavender perfumed the breeze. Daniel spent his mornings on the swing that Lucas had installed, and his evenings drawing elaborate stories of knights and starships and sisters who could tame dragons. But the black car had not been a dream. It returned, parked farther away this time, just visible through the trees. Sophia wasn't done. They received the summons 2 weeks later. Her lawyer was pursuing partial visitation. A stepmother's emotional rights, the document read. Despite recent misunderstandings. Richard stared at the envelope as if it had teeth. Elena read it once, then set it down. "She doesn't want visitation," she said. "She wants relevance. Control." Daniel didn't speak when they told him. He only went to the piano room and played a soft, haunting melody, one Elena didn't recognize. A song he had never learned and would never forget. They knew then, they couldn't shield him by silence. The court date was set for mid-June. Their lawyer, a woman with eyes like a hawk and zero tolerance for manipulation, built the case ruthlessly. Hospital reports, therapist notes, Elena's testimony, and, with trembling hands, Richard's own admission of failure and change. But the most powerful voice would be Daniel's. And they knew it. He asked to practice. "I want to tell the truth," he said, "but not just what happened. I want them to know who I am now." Elena sat across from him, her voice calm. "What would you say if today were the day?" Daniel thought, "That I used to be afraid of my voice. That I thought quiet made me safe. But now I know silence can be a trap. And now I use my voice, even if it shakes." The courtroom was cold, its walls too tall, its benches too hard. Sophia sat at the far table, dressed in gray silk, her mouth painted into a neutral smile. But Elena saw the cracks, tightness around her eyes, the effort behind the calm. Daniel entered holding both crutches, but walking tall. He didn't look at her. The judge asked if he wished to speak. Daniel stood. "My name is Daniel Hale. I'm 7 years old. I live with my dad, my stepmom Elena, and my new sister and brother." He paused. "I used to be scared all the time. I thought I was bad because I cried. But it wasn't me. It was the house. It was the basement. It was how I was treated." Sophia shifted in her seat. "Now I feel safe. Now I have a real family. I don't want visits. I don't want to pretend. I want peace." He sat. The room was silent. Even the judge didn't speak for a moment. Then came the verdict. Sophia's request was denied. With prejudice. The court recognized emotional harm, manipulation, and a pattern of neglect. Her presence was ruled not only unnecessary, but dangerous. She left the room wordlessly, and Daniel never saw her again. They drove home with the windows down. Daniel held Elena's hand the whole way. At a stoplight, he turned to Richard. "Did I do okay?" Richard looked at him. "You didn't just do okay. You did everything right." Daniel smiled. "Then let's go home." That night, they didn't celebrate with cake or music. They just sat on the porch under the stars, Elena's head resting on Richard's shoulder, Daniel curled between them like a cat half asleep. Camila read aloud from a book. Lucas dozed with headphones. No one spoke of the trial. They didn't need to. Later that week, Daniel stood before the therapist, showing how far he could walk unaided. 10 steps, then 15, then 20. The therapist clapped. "That's farther than ever." Daniel grinned. "Next time I'll run." Richard knelt beside him. "You already are, son." Years from now, they would barely remember the layout of the old house before it changed. The echo of footsteps and fear. The locked doors. The silence that punished. But they would remember what came after. They would remember Daniel's drawings filling the fridge. The afternoon Lucas built a treehouse. The night Camila and Daniel stayed up making constellations out of glow-in-the-dark stickers on his ceiling. They would remember the day the crutches stayed in the corner for good. And they would remember that courage doesn't always look like loud declarations. Sometimes, it looks like a child stepping into the light, just once more, and this time, not alone.